So it's time for another gardening week video, and it's been another really dismal week, and I suffer a bit from seasonal effectiveness disorder, and when it's cloudy and rainy, I am not at my best. And I've done all sorts of things to try and improve it, and I don't want to complain too much because I do feel pretty good, but I just don't feel as good as I do on a day like today. It's Saturday today and it's absolutely gorgeous. And yeah, so I don't know if anybody's got any hints and tips when they're watching this video for anybody who's got seasonal effectiveness disorder, but I might make a video about what I do to try and combat it myself. One of the obvious things that everybody will know who watches these videos is that I love to try and watch the sunrises at this time of year. And I do that while I'm walking to the health club. And one of the benefits of that is that I do get that initial kind of burst of high intensity light nice and early in the morning, because the health club can be quite gloomy and that is not ideal. But at least I get the warmth of the sauna and the fairly bright artificial lights in the pool area and things. So it's not so bad. Monday I had the pool to myself, which is always a treat. It does also help, without doubt, to get out into the fresh air and down onto the allotment. And that is particularly good on a rainy day because I'm not mad keen on walking in the rain and cycling in the rain, but I don't mind working on the allotment on a showery day because I can dash into the polytunnel, and even when it's pouring down with rain, the polytunnel is still quite a nice place to be and sit and chill out. So I was there on Monday and I got quite a lot done actually, and the main thing that I wanted to do was clear all of my late crop strawberry bed, and that always becomes a horrible matted mess by this time of year, no matter how much I thin it out at this time of year. Anyway, gave it a good thin out, got bitten loads of times by unknown insects on my legs, but that is always the risk when you work outdoors a lot. And in all the gaps, what I like to do as well is I like to plant elephant garlic. So down the centre of the bed, I plant elephant garlic for harvesting the bulbs, the cloves, and down the edges of the bed, I plant it for harvesting earlier in the season as a kind of early leek. Now, elephant garlic is in the leek family, so it's not surprising that the stems are very leek-like. It's just that they come way earlier than leeks do, so it's really useful. And of course you can use the monobulb as well. Debbie was also on her plot, and we removed the last of the celeriac that we've got and planted garlic, and we're almost there now with garlic. I'll talk a little bit later on in the video about the garlic situation for us, but yeah, we're about 95% planted now with garlic, which is pretty good. Debbie's also been doing, which I'll show you in more detail when I do the tour video of her plot, is she's been tidying up a lot of her perennial beds. And when she started, she was really enthusiastic and she packed in lots of different types of perennial plants all into the same space. And of course, over time, they've just become a bit of a tangled mess. And it's very difficult to manage them, very difficult to weed them, harvest them, etc. So now what she's doing is just picking her favourites, clearing out everything else, just making it a lot easier to manage. And that means for Debbie, who's a massive rhubarb fan, lots of things are being taken out, like globe artichokes, for example, and lots more rhubarb is going in. What I also did was I turned my compost bin, and that's only really worthy of comment because I'm always turning my compost bins, because at the bottom of the compost bin were ocker stems from my trial ocker harvest a few weeks ago. And I was quite amazed actually, because on those stems, dozens of little ocker tubers had grown since I put them in the compost bin. Now obviously they have no light, they were at the bottom of the compost bin. But what had happened obviously is, and this happens with ocker in general, is that when the ocker tops kind of die back when the frost hits, all the sap from the stems goes into the tubers. But what had happened with these is that at every leaf junction on the stem, a little ocker tuber had grown. So I harvested all those and ate them on the plot. But I was quite amazed actually that had happened in the bottom of a compost bin. and they were really gorgeous as well. What it makes me think though is that maybe I should earth up my ochre even more, and I might even try that with the ochre that's in the back garden. Just pile some compost on top of it and see what happens, because it may be that we'll get masses and masses of these little really crunchy little ochre tubers growing, as I say, at all the leaf junctions. So that's definitely worth an experiment. So on Tuesday it was raining again, and after my swim I decided that what I would do is start researching soil testing. And this is not really a topic that I've been very interested in. I grow so many different varieties and so many different successions that there's no real opportunity for me to tune the soil to a particular plant, because if I tune it to that plant, it'll be the wrong conditions for the plant that follows it in the succession. So it's just hopelessly complicated. But I was sent some soil testing gear by a company in Hungary, and I'll do a video all about it, but basically it looks pretty good, it looks pretty easy to use, and so I thought it's a great opportunity just to try and sort of build my knowledge about what happens to the soil and what differences there are between the back garden, the front garden, my plot, Debbie's plot, the outdoor beds, the undercover beds, and all that sort of thing. So is there any difference in pH levels? Is there any difference in dissolved solids? Do the dissolved solid levels change very much through the seasons? Dissolved solids basically is a good indicator of how much available minerals and other nutrients there are in the soil available to the plants. So yeah, I thought I would start to do that. And so one of the things that I did was I got some data on all the different types of veggies and what sort of pH levels they're like. And to me, that is just a sea of numbers, and I can't really deal with it. So I got that into a spreadsheet and did some analysis on it, turned it into colour charts and things like that. And I'm starting to get a handle now on, how to think about the soil and pH levels and what I'm trying to achieve and things like that. So when I start doing some soil testing, I'll be in a better position to make and draw some conclusions about whether I want to modify things a little bit. One of the other things that's really nice that I'm quite excited to be able to do though is also to test the pH levels of my composts. And because that compost going into containers in a lot of cases, and so I am able to modify the pH levels of containers. So I might want to, for example, make sure that my potatoes are in a fairly acid container, like my blueberries, but other plants are in neutral or slightly alkali conditions, for example. So that's perhaps where in containers, that's where I might be doing something just to modify things a little bit. I'm just also interested to see what the pH levels are of the compost that I make compared to, for example, the well-rotted horse manure that we sometimes buy, compared to the mushroom compost that we sometimes buy, although we're struggling to get a hold of that now, compared to the cow manure that we sometimes buy, so all of these different things. And it'll also be interesting to test what my paths are like, because my paths have been built up, about that thick now, full of effectively composted arborist wood chips. So I've got quite a few different environments to test and see if anything jumps out at me. Finally, on Tuesday I sowed a whole load of lettuces and just a few, my last succession for this year of brassicas, and just did calabrese and Brussels sprouts that will be growing for leaves. The lettuce is the most important one. I sowed quite a lot of different varieties. They're all under grow lights now, and actually I noticed today that quite a lot of them have germinated. So I sowed them on Tuesday, it's Saturday today, and this is what they look like. They're looking pretty good. They'll grow under lights, and they'll go, about half of them will go into the polytunnel to grow on in cool conditions until probably late December, something like that. And they'll probably replace my autumn and early winter carrots, and they should be ready to eat those lettuces in April, probably early April, late March, something like that. I quite like doing a batch this late because it allows me to sow my favourite spring varieties, and by then I'll be getting a bit fed up of my favourite winter varieties. So it's just a way to get more variety. And of course, you know, what else are you going to plant in a carrot bed that comes free in late December? There's not many options. I've got a few red kitten spinach because that is my favourite spring spinach. It's not my favourite winter spinach, and so again, this is just an opportunity to get, you know, a few dozen spinach plants started, just so that as the winter ones are starting to fade a little bit, the spring ones, will be my first succession of spring ones, and they should probably be ready sometime in April. So yeah, I got those sowed. I'm pretty happy about that. I don't, as a rule, generally like sowing things, but at this time of year, I really like sowing things because there's just not much to do. I've now finished, I think, all the sowing at least that I'm going to do in November, and I generally recommend you don't sow anything in December, although, you know, because I'm always doing experiments and pushing the envelope, I might do a few, but if I do anything, it'll probably be something like salad onions. So on Tuesday afternoon it was raining again, so we decided to go to the cinema. It is quite nice to have the option when it's raining to go to the cinema. We watched The Eternals, it was okay. Not one of the best films we've seen, but it was certainly a nice way to spend a rainy afternoon. And actually one of the posters for The Eternals is a lovely sunset or sunrise scene. It's hard to know which one it is. And as you know, I really like sunrise and sunset photos, so I've got some better ones than theirs. On Wednesday we planted the last of the garlic. Now we're doing the garlic a little bit different this year, so over the years we've lost track of what garlic varieties we actually grow, and they're all jumbled up together, and you know, it's a bit annoying when people ask you what varieties do we grow, which ones are the best and all that sort of thing, because all of ours are just like a random selection. So this year we just got all new seed garlic. So about 90% of what was sown is just this jumbled mix, but about 10% are known varieties. So we've planted those in our favourite locations, and those are dedicated plantings just for next year's seed supply. So yeah, so from now on, hopefully we'll be able to make some recommendations as to which garlics to grow and compare the results of actually known different varieties in different locations. So should be a little bit better than previous years. Important news really for Wednesday is that I got to take my granddaughter to the allotment for the first proper time. I did take her when she was really little, but this time she's 8 months old, and I put her in the carrier and she had a lovely time. She is so keen on seeing things, natural things moving around and all that sort of thing. So she was absolutely in her element. Little head was whipping all over the place as she was trying to take everything in, and yeah, she had a really lovely time, and then she fell asleep, so that's really nice as well. Nothing like having a sleeping baby on you. And I love carriers actually. I carried all my kids and my first grandson, and so now I'm carrying my granddaughter, and yeah, it's really nice. And actually my daughter is a consultant in baby and child carrying, and she has hundreds of different types of carriers and knows all about anatomy and, you know, all the different ways that you can carry kids and, you know, solve different problems with different health conditions and all that sort of thing. So she has kind of shared my passion for carrying kids. So I might do a video actually all about carrying and just how freeing it is and how lovely it is for the kids as well. Finally, on Wednesday, I have now set up a website for all of my walk and talk and walking tour videos, and I've been experimenting with a bit more of a visual interface compared to just the sort of text interface that I've got in my book website, and I'll probably be transitioning the book over to a more visual feel on all of the index pages and things like that, because I quite like the way that the one that I did for the walking ones looks. And if you want to take a look at that, then there'll be a link in the description. Thursday, the weather finally improved and I got out for a long sunrise walk along the promenade and through the sand dunes. It was really lovely, and then went for my usual swim and sauna and all that. And then I went to the allotment in the afternoon, and I've got quite a few new allotment neighbours actually. So I've got a new neighbour at the back of my plot and a new neighbour on one of the other sides. And the one on the back, Rob his name is, he's great and he's a fireman, and I've given him loads of stuff this year and lots of help and advice, and it's been really nice. It's one of the great pleasures, I think, of being on an allotment, that you can help other people. And so on Thursday I also got to help my new neighbours that have just arrived, Vicky and Mike, and yeah, so I cut some stumps down for them and just used a saw. Yeah, apparently it's really dangerous to use a chainsaw so close to the ground, so yeah, good old elbow grease was all that's required, and a sharp saw. If you don't want to saw off your stumps, Richard from the Veg Grower podcast was saying that he has another method basically to remove the stumps of trees, which is to put a Dalek kind of compost bin over the top of them, fill it with compost and leave it for a couple of years. But you know, for me it's just a lot easier to spend 10 minutes sawing the stump off with the saw and getting the job done. Finally on Thursday, as part of Debbie's rationalisation, she's got a bed of Albion ever-bearing strawberries that she needs to get rid of, and I really like Albion. They're really great. They taste quite good even in autumn, but they do tend to get, you know, rot a lot because it's just so wet, and of course the slugs get them as well. So what I've done is taken quite a few of them and potted them up into containers, and then those containers next year, in about sort of September time, will go into the polytunnel, and hopefully they'll give us a really nice late crop of good quality strawberries. I really like snacking on strawberries when I'm on the allotment, and so this will be an extra bonus to get such sweet tastes from the allotment at that time of year. So when I went to the allotment on Thursday, I noticed it was getting a bit weedy, and I said to Debbie, oh, I don't mind it being that weedy, but as I kind of thought about it through Friday morning, I thought, yeah, I do really worry about it. Or not worry about it so much, it just annoys me every time I go and I see all these weeds. So I just got stuck in on a rainy Friday afternoon, but it was better than being stuck inside, and got about 2/3 of the plot weeded, and it looks pretty sharp now. So I feel much happier going there now. It's just that little thing nagging at the back of my head saying, oh, it's a bit of a mess. And that is resolved. Saturday was harvest day, and it was a glorious day, and so it's actually Saturday today, and so I'm feeling way better than I have for the rest of the week. And there was loads of people there, so I spent loads of time chatting, which is always a really nice thing to do on harvest day. So I got to share quite a lot of produce with some of my allotment neighbours, and yeah, it was really nice. And it, for the first time actually in about definitely 3 weeks, I actually felt that I was confident that I could leave produce in the ground knowing that we'd got enough to harvest. So for the last few weeks, I've been harvesting pretty much everything that we've got that is available, and really pushing the beds hard, pushing the plants hard. And they've been keeping up just about. Some of the beds are looking a little bit tired now. For example, one of the early spinach beds has probably been overcropped, but it's not a worry because I've got loads more spinach coming on. And so this time I was actually able to leave quite a lot of stuff that was harvest ready, and just leave it in the ground for next week. And I'm pretty confident now, looking at how everything's going, that, you know, I will have plenty of veg well into winter now, and probably all the way through winter and into spring without any real shortages. You never can be quite sure. You're never quite sure what the weather's going to throw at you and all of that sort of thing, but it's all looking pretty good. I've got quite a lot of beds that I'm not harvesting yet, which will come on stream in winter. And I've got quite a few beds that I am harvesting now where I'm not taking everything that I could take from them. So it's a really nice place to be. And also just the store. I mean, the store is very well stocked at the moment. And again, we're really hardly touching the produce in the store. So we're taking stuff out at well below the rate that we plan to. Again, just a little bit of contingency makes sense at this time of year. So here's the harvest table for this week. And actually, this is the first week for 2 or 3 weeks now when I've actually felt like I've been leaving produce in the ground and not harvesting everything that was available, which is a nice place to be, just heading into winter, because it feels like we're in surplus again. And we try and fill this table, obviously, as I've said many times, each week now until March, and then we'll have way more than this by then. But let's have a quick run through. So we've just taken one of these Crown Prince squash from the store, potatoes from the store, beetroot from the store, shallots and onions and garlic from the store. I think that's everything from the store. Obviously we eat more onions than that, but these are the ones we're giving away. And some celeriac from the ground. That's the last of our celeriac now, and we've replanted that bed with garlic, some leeks, carrots for cooking, carrots for the salads, turnips and radish, Jerusalem artichokes. That I think might be the last of the apples. And then these are colettes and sprouts. I'm only picking the blown sprouts at the moment, which I love even more than tight sprouts. So nice few of those. Field bean tops, parsley, and then all this is spinach, and purple sprouting broccoli, and curly kale, Brussels sprout leaves, purple sprouting broccoli leaves, Carvalho Nero, purple sprout leaves, colette leaves, and perennial kale leaves. So quite a few nice leaves. We're saving the cabbages for winter. Pak choy, red pak choy and tatsoi in those three. And then these are all the salad bases. And this is lovely. This is winter miner's lettuce or winter purslane. I picked the worst example of that. Let's get something a bit nicer. So this is a really succulent leaf. Ideally we would be eating this later on in the year, but this has come ready so early that I've just started harvesting some of these old leaves and letting the new tender leaves come through, and salad onions. So that is a pretty nice mix. I'm just going to make up the salads now, and then we'll get all this packed and distributed. About half of this is for us, the rest is for friends and family. The last harvest this week, and it was the last of the parsnips on the allotment, which I'm pretty pleased about because that frees up a bed that I can probably put some spring cabbages in, for example. And I had a first in the back garden, which was the first of the winter miner's lettuce or Claytonia. And we don't normally harvest that actually until well into winter. But it's just been so wet and mild, it's just grown really quickly. So, the leaf quality would start to degrade if I left it any longer. So I start to clear those plants, and they will regrow, so hopefully they will have regrown by the time we really want them, which is in February, but we'll have to see. Sunday I was back on the allotment again and just did a bit more tidying up, so finished all of that weeding, cleared a few of those beds, and just getting ready really now for the next set of planting that I'm going to do in December. And I also had a look in the morning at the allotment finances, and I'm pretty pleased actually. We've harvested, and by the end of the year we will have harvested about just over £7,000 worth of fruit and veg this year, and about £250 worth of preserves we've made. So 7,250 of value effectively that we've extracted from the allotments and the garden, and that is a lot less than we've had in previous years, but that is by design. A, I wanted to do less work on the garden. B, we've got a lot less land, and we also are harvesting for a lot less people, because last year, because of COVID, we were harvesting for loads and loads of people, friends of ours and neighbours and things, just to help them out a little bit. And sort of 28 people, and now we're down to about 14 people. It's a lot more manageable. It's a lot less strain on my knees, and also I say we've got a lot less land. So yeah, we're down to about 200 square meters, I think, of land, something like that. And so if you work that out, about £35 harvested per square meter of land. And in the previous years, we had that up about 40 because we were mainly growing high value crops for a lot of people. And this year we're growing a lot of staples, very low value staples. So a lot of onions, a lot of potatoes, a lot of parsnips and things like that. Things that have, the value of them is incredibly low by comparison with the space and the time that they occupy that space for. But we're only really harvesting for family now, and so it just makes sense to provide as much of their vegetable needs as possible, and not really care so much about the value of the harvest. And so £35 is still pretty respectable, certainly covers our costs many times over and gives us a really good profit. And yeah, so that's about it. So somewhere in the region of £7,500, 7,250, something like that for the year. And that compares to over £10,000 last year. But we're really happy with that new arrangement. And actually next year I think we'll be doing a similar sort of thing. And maybe I'll do a video specifically on this, looking at the way forward and the allotment finances and all of that sort of thing. But I'm looking to reduce my time gardening down to about 10 hours a week, and so we'll probably keep feeding about sort of 12-14 people, something like that. And I'm just looking to increase the proportion of the diet of those 14 people that we grow, rather than add extra friends onto the harvest list. I think that's a nicer way to garden now, as I'm kind of getting a bit older. Just want everything just a little bit easier and a little bit more balanced. And I've got so many other things that I want to do. It seems to be working out well. So if by chance you want any more details on anything that I talked about on this video, then you can take a look at my actual diary, and there's a link to that in the description below. And it's actually in the reference information section under November in the ebook as well. And it just goes through everything that I've just talked about. So day by day, all the things that I did with photos and links and all of that. So take a look at that if you want more. I think that's it. My name's Steve. This is the Seaside Kitchen Garden and Allotment channel, and I'll see you next week.